Yeah. 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 Okay.
Hello, welcome to Afrospace with me, Adetunji Omotola, and my partner, co-host, Nyasha Grace. Today we have on Afrospace, join us all the way from North America, Canada to be specific, a lady by the name of Clara Kingston, who is a food and beverage hospitality professional. Clara is into fine dining, customer service, and also passionate about tourism in Africa. Welcome to Afrospace, Clara.
Thank you so much, Cindy and Nasha. Thank you so much.
Great. So Clara, we're going to ask you and just really talk to the beginning, right where this starts for you. Firstly, help us to understand exactly what encompasses the hospitality industry, and then also tell us your own personal journey and your own personal story on how you got into the hospitality industry.
Okay, lovely. So the hospitality industry in itself, it's quite broad, right? So you have, you've got your hotels, you've got your restaurants, you've got your bars, lodging. And lodging really in particular, this involves like luxury palaces, we're talking about boutique hotels, we're talking about bed and breakfast, camping grounds. In Africa, we can actually even explore caves, believe it or not, treetops and so forth. So this is really vast. It's very huge. But then we get into the casinos, food services. I actually, when I went to school, this food services, this is a huge, huge industry because students need to eat. And we had a fine dining restaurant. That's actually where I honed my butler service skills and my culinary management skills, both front of the house and back of the house. But this is what that school really had. But then again, we're talking about event management. We're talking about convention centers, theme parks, the travel and tourism industry, in particular transportation. Like, who would have thought? We're talking about ferries, right? In BC, when I was working in BC, ferries are huge, right? But you need to transport people. Cruise ships, right? I mean, you've got the carnivals and so forth. People take holidays, but boats and so forth. And we're going to talk about that when we get into Africa, because I think Africa is really not utilizing their waters like the Zambezi River. But that's really much, what I can say about the hospitality. I got actually into the industry by mistake, believe it or not. If you're aware, African parents, they want that doctor, they want that accountant. And that wasn't for me. And my father wanted me to be a doctor, but the kind of doctor I wanted to be a veterinarian. And, again, African parents, there's no money in veterinarian. So we kind of clashed. Moving forward, I kind of actually did go into the veterinary program, but for some reason, I said to myself, test it out before you really, delve into it. McGill University had already accepted me for my animal health, pre-veterinary program. I was accepted right there, but I worked in the clinic. And when I got the full hands-on experience of what it is and what I saw, it's not just a little cute little doggy or I really saw the back, like when the dog is sick, when we have to put down the dog. It wasn't for me. It really wasn't for me. So I spoke to a counselor and she said, I give you 2 days, decide. Combine animals and whatever. Took me just half an hour. Tourism, animal, people, happiness.
Wow.
And really, that's how I came into this industry. It was really by accident. But again, I started from the beginning. I through the diploma, you know, you had to learn how to be a server, you know, customer service, right? Very, very important, and not just customer service, exceptional customer service. And there we really dived in, you know, sommelier program, you had to do food, wine, and culture. You had to do culinary because you are working in the industry. You had to do events. There were so many things that we had to do. In fact, my treasured thing is, I don't know if you can see this, that's the hospitality, it's a feasibility study for a hotel that we had to do for Marriott, actually, and we won top prize for that because had to, yeah, exactly. So you have to learn the economic side, like really use your economics, macro, micro, international management, everything that you that you learned in the program. So that was great, but I wasn't really satisfied, right? And at the same time, I had four jobs while I was going to school. Yes, I was a server at another. I was an event management coordinator at another. I was helping out the Yemeni embassy. It was crazy, but you know what? I was so determined. And then I realized I wanted to be in management, like really. So that's why I went a step further and I went into the degree program. That's a lot of work, I'll tell you that. But so many great things. We had to do a zero budget event, and you know, again, with everything that you've learned in the hospitality industry, and the money we donated to a charity of choice, and we won like $5,000, you know, from that, like, in our achievements. And you know what, and you know what, I couldn't turn back, but it is a lot of hard work. I mean, you've got 3 exams in one day, so you really have to be passionate. Don't just go in it for the money, you're gonna die, really. It's long hours. Sometimes I work 16 hours a day, but that comes with the industry, and that's just really how I got into it, and I'll never turn back.
Okay. Now, Clara, we have seen the impact of COVID-19 on global tourism, and it's been devastating. Airlines have been like, you know, fixed objects. Planes are not flying, borders are closed, airports are closed, people are not moving. But I think things are beginning to ease up a little bit. Well, can you give us a sense of that impact on your industry, especially, you know, around tourism and also hotel accommodation? Because there are hotels almost in every city, every town. What has been the impact, and especially on the job side? How many job losses and so on have we seen on your side of the woods?
Exactly. Well, as you all know, just like you said it, we've been the hardest hit in the hospitality industry. Closures of just about everything, you know, borders, like imagine borders being closed. And there was a period, like this is what, it's been going on for now 6 months for us. And it's very devastating. Job layoffs every day. I see it on my LinkedIn, you know, I've just been laid off. So as devastating as it was, the government of Canada really acted promptly. So they came up with an emergency COVID plan. So in order to assist, you know, us people, what they did was they had, I believe it was called CERB. So CERB was, for let's say if you are working and you don't have an income, so the government will assist you, doesn't matter whether you're husband and wife, every week, I believe you get $500. So that was very good, because even if people don't have anything, that sustains them. And then what does that do? That money goes back into the economy, right? Because they're spending it. So that was just one of the things that they did. For students too as well, what they did for this emergency plan was the students, I think they got the same thing, but don't quote me on this. But if you were a student that was taking care of a loved one, you know, with a disability, they gave you additional money for that on a weekly basis, you know. And then again, there was the wage subsidy. So that was for employers, you know, who through, you know, no fault of their own, you know, maybe they still want to keep that business, but they want to pay workers, their employees, or they lay off their employees, but they that's maybe in 3 months, you know, they figure out something and then they want to bring back those employees. So that was one of the things that the government did. And then there was another one. What was the other one? I forget, but there was also another one for the government, I guess, you know, the government giving money, but there was one for the government. So they did a great job. You know, we weren't really as bad as the people on the other side of the border. But those are just things that they did. But restaurants got very creative. Restaurants I saw, and I think we are so far a little bit behind here in Canada, as much as we like to say we're advanced. In Africa, we used to have takeouts all the time. Takeout. So this is basically what people started doing. So when you're driving like through the McDonald's, you know, the little window there, actually restaurants got very creative because you don't want the contact and people couldn't go into their restaurants. So there were all these little windows popping where you'd have to call in advance, use your Interact, you know, you pay through Interact through your bank account, and then they give you a number and then you go pick up your food. Other restaurants that I spoke to that specialize, let's say, for example, halal, right? We've got a huge Muslim community here in Canada. So they would improvise. They'll say, listen, we've got this meat, you know, we will deliver it to you if you want, you know, or you can pick it up at such times. And then, because they don't want their produce to go to work, to waste, then they'll say, we're going to add a little bit of tomatoes, we're going to add, you know, and this is what actually kept businesses alive, believe it or not. Now, other places like Europe, as I saw, they had these little cubicles that they built, like glass houses. Many people contradicted that. Oh, how are you going to clean it, blah, blah, blah. But if you work in the hospitality industry, you know that that's innovation right there, because instead, that's the difference between being closed and being open. So they had these little glass houses. They started that before. Guests were still going in, and after they disinfect them, it was really half and half. Was it safe? We don't know. But so far, you know what, they did a good job. So I think, really, as difficult as COVID-19 is, in my opinion, it's really about strategies. It's really about policies. It's really about strong implementations. And the whole point is to keep safe, right? Safety is number one. So as long as we take those safety precautions, we remind the general public, you know, our staff, you know, we're taking certain steps and measures in ensuring that everything is cleaned. And I mean, not just, you know, like the old, I mean, cleaned in every aspect. I think COVID-19, you know, like SARS, we had SARS before, we've had other pandemics we survived. This one, to me, my opinion is we just have to find another way to survive this pandemic.
Yeah. Okay, so Clara, we learned from your bio that you mentioned earlier, you know, just the different areas of hospitality that you yourself have worked in, and one area is event management. So we learned from your bio that you were picked while you were in school to organize Yemenis embassy events.
Yes.
Could you tell us about that? Tell us some highlights about those events and anything that you know, just stood out in that time for you.
Okay. For me, again, it was because of the school. The school really promotes students. So they promote towards businesses, you know, convention centers in case they're short staffed. And again, for us, you need the proper qualifications. You just can't, they just won't send you. You need to have what we call Smart Serve. That is like, it's like almost like a license, like you know how to, you know, basically the hospitality law in terms of alcohol consumption and so forth. Those are trainings that we have. You just can't go and say, oh, you're going to be a server. You need Smart Serve. And again, because of, you know, we have food safety. You have to have food safety. So they'll put it out there and embassies would call. You know, they're looking for someone. And the first time we went there, you know, we really didn't know what to expect. It's the, you know, Middle Eastern. We don't know anything about their cuisine. But I just fell in love with the ambassador's wife. She's just a very lovely woman. She treated us with kindness. But the highlights are, for me, was when the Foreign Affairs Minister, and that was, I think, when it had to do with the 9/11. So imagine being in a room with 13 ambassadors from the Middle East with the foreign affairs, and you are running this event. To me, hands down, I think that had to be the biggest highlight. And then also the ambassador, what he did is something that I've never seen. He promotes unity from everybody from the Middle East. So he used to have these dinners for students every year. It didn't matter who you were. They'll have about 250 students. But the whole point was him instilling, you know, how to behave when you're in Canada, how to abide by the laws when you're in trouble. You know, like, I don't really know if there are many embassies that do that. So it was just everybody, a collection of people, you know, and they're getting to know the embassy. He's teaching them, you know, the laws about Canada and so forth. If they need help, you know, this is where you get to come. So I think for me, that was quite impactful. Another one was the Ambassador's Wives Tea events that I used to host, usually on weekends. The wives of ambassadors, they just, you know, from Yemen or actually the Middle East, they gathered together. And I used to run those events too as well. And they had this women empowerment program, which again, you could be from Yemen as long as you give them the name, and then they'll have these big lavish dinners, and you know, they'll be dancing. You know, it was all about promoting culture, heritage, history, you know, and just introducing them to Canadian Yemenis who were born here. So to be honest with you, I really learned a lot, and I think that was one of the reasons that I enjoyed, because I was learning as I was working too. And
Okay.
also, they used to send the car to pick me up at work. So that was
Interesting. Okay, now Clara, you have won many awards in your career, and one of those awards I was actually quite interested, because the first time when I see the word battle, I always remember the Battle of Britain. So when I saw the Battle of the Knives competition, I was like, Battle of the Knives. Okay, let's try and explore that a bit. So can you share with us what this competition is about and
yes,
the benefits thereof? Yeah, Battle of the Knives.
So I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, wow. You've got so many things to show us. What's that?
Yeah.
Battle of the Knives, Certificate of Participation.
Yes,
Wonderful.
yes.
Clara Kingston. Okay, tell us about this knives.
So the Battle
Did you
of the
stab
Knives,
anyone? What happened?
you know, before my computer crashed, I had a whole presentation for you, but it's okay. I'm not going to be running. So I won actually a knife, a chef knife from that one.
Wow.
So, and I still have the knife and it works wonders. The Battle of the Knives competition, to be honest with you, it's really about teamwork, right? Working together. It's basically how we are in the work environment. So they're really training us. Really, that's what it's all about. Collaboration, you know, if you're stuck, you know, if something happens, how are you going to tackle that issue? Are you going to crumble and so forth, because you're working under pressure. So what that was two culinary students and then one event management student, or one front of the house, as I was. So the culinary students in the front, they will come up with a meal and so forth, and it was live. Like they were cameras, the TV crew in the back, and then I was the one who was working in the front of the house. What do? I set the table, I set the theme, and again, it was also revenue generation for the restaurant. Very smart. So whomever we invite, they buy a ticket, right, to that lunch that they're going to have. So whether you're setting for a 3-course meal, whether it's just, you know, just the regular and so forth. And again, high-paced, things can go wrong. I'll tell you this, things went wrong in the back, but you know, it's how you're going to come out of that, right? So without even going any further, we won, and that was one of the, for a student, I think that's one of the highest achievement that you can be, but under the guidance of the culinary chefs. So this is really preparing us, you know, for what's out there, things that may happen. So that's really what the Battle of the Knives is. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So Clara, it sounds like you want to bring back all these achievements and the skills and the experience that you have gotten abroad to Africa. You talk very passionately about the tourism industry, and particularly the African tourism industry. Just share with us some of, you know, your mind about if you were and when you do come back to Africa, what you'd like to impact in the tourism industry on the continent?
Well, you see, I see, I haven't been in the continent since I was a child, and that's, it's almost like what, 30 years now. I haven't been, 25, 30 years, and I really want to come back. Number one, I'm obsessed with the youth from Africa, just their youth, their skills, their innovation. Like, you have these girls that are on YouTube doing YouTube videos about camera setup and so forth, right? You have these makeup gurus in Nigeria. I mean, these girls, their makeup is just like a makeup artist here in Canada. And this is very inspiring. In Kenya, there's this girl, she does gastronomy. So she's showing not just the fancy parts, but she's showing the local, like going in rural areas, how they make certain dishes. And for me, I'm an F&B person. For me, that's very inspiring, because when I go to Africa, why would I want to go to Fairmont or Marriott? I want to try something that's completely different. So this is the reason why I want to come back to Africa. Number one is women empowerment, because women, I think women can do anything, in my opinion. I think we just need to give them, the skills. And if I can give them the skills that I've learned from here, because on this end, it's really about standards. Like, it's not just standard, it's meeting and exceeding, expectations. If these people here are going to be going to Africa, I want them, after I train these youth, these women, to say, wow, so this is giving them butler service training. You can train soft skills, you can also train hard skills. So it's really, really, really not hard. Soft skills, right? Communication, right? I had to learn that. I had to take communications 1, 2, 3. So you teach them about leadership, you teach them about patience, because this industry, it can drive you insane if you don't have patience, right? You need to teach them time management, right? If you 12 hours, if something goes wrong, are you going to run in the corner? Are you going to be on your phone? No, we don't do that. So these are things, teamwork, the ability to integrate, into teams, right? Working together. I mean, stress management, problem solving, strategy and innovation, right? All these things, and as well the hard skills, right? So proficiency in language. We can have people who speak French, English, now they're teaching Mandarin, I hear. This is actually very, very important. Machine operations, we use Oracle here, right? But you can just have a system that they can use. Computer programming, teach them that, website design. I do all those things. So you just give them the basis, right? But train them in soft skills and train them in skills training. I think that will work wonders, because no. Did I thought I cut out, sorry.
No, you're here.
Yeah, it just went blank, Yeah, so I said, no. So that's basically it. So again, we here, like in certain parts of the world, what I learned about in my degree program was, there are these women, I forget where it was, whether it was in Nicaragua, in the middle of nowhere. And there's no income, but guess what they started doing? Someone went there and gave them the skills. They taught them how to drive boats. They taught them how to grow vegetables. You really don't need to teach them, but they pretty much know how to do that. But these women together, there were about 4 women, first they were kind of shunned at first, like, oh, you women, you don't have to do that. That's a man's job. This was a niche market that they created. Women who don't want to go to places where men are, they just want to be women, like with women. Those women were going to visit those people. Guess what was happening? They were pumping money into the economy. When you pump money in the economy, what does that do? Boost the GDP, right? Job creation. So that little money that they got, then they got something else. They were trained in driving, right? And then they started growing more fruits and vegetables. Then they were able to sell that. But what did they do? They went to the next community and they empowered that community, other women, girls, and so forth. So these are things that can be done in Africa. Youth, especially youth, for me, it was all about standards, like I said. So dress code, right? You have to teach them this is the dress code. You know, their hair. You know, men with beards. You know, there's certain standards that we follow. Makeup. You can have makeup, but it can't be too drastic. In Canada, they have the pink hair, green hair. Well, if you come for an interview, you have to decide if you want to keep that green hair or pink hair, because we have the standards, right? Chefs. Some of the chefs got tattoos, right? But if they can be hidden, that's no problem. You know, that shouldn't have an effect on people. Now we're into fragrance. You cannot, there are policies that say you can't wear perfume because, you know, allergies and so forth. But body language, expression, how do you go to someone, you know, good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs., you know, welcome to the Fairmont Hotel, welcome to Marriott, you know, come this way. You know, those are things that we can teach. And this is really, really what I want to bring to Africa, because you know what, there's really no need for, I hear there's no employment, but if the government will actually allow me, you know, to bring in my initiative, and if it's not possible, then I'll just bring this initiative myself.
Now, Clara, you talked eloquently about Africa, your plans for Africa, training, and all that you want to invest, women empowerment, young people, skilled young people. There's not billions, but there's hundreds of millions of young people in Africa. Now, there is a Canada Africa Chamber of Commerce, and they've been quite proactive online, doing great things.
Okay.
With the support of the South African ambassador and all of that, based in Canada. Now, given your passion for tourism in Africa, what advice would you have for the Chief Executive Officer of the Canada Africa Chamber in terms of boosting tourism in Africa?
Okay. It's first, one word, starts off with collaboration, I think. I've tried so many times collaborating with embassies, African embassies here in Canada, and it's quite impossible. It shouldn't be impossible, really, but I think, and I'm going to be very, I'm going to be very broad here. I think the standards that we put on these titles, I think they really need to come down a little bit, you know, because if somebody says, listen, I've got this, and there's so many, you have to call this person, then you call the secretary this person, and the secretary's oh my God, we don't do that here in Canada. I just call the whatever, Minister of Finance is Mr. Da-da-da-da, can I speak with him? No? Okay, how do I do that? And, you know, they put you through. So these are things, the challenges that we face when we're trying to bring these ideas. What I would like for them to do, number one, is discuss, first of all, work with ambassadors in certain countries. So how many ambassadors, how many countries do we have in Africa? How many ambassadors do we have around the world? Because these ambassadors are the ones who will promote our natural resources. They're the ones who are going to promote tourism. They're the ones, if I go to the ambassadors as I wanted, I'm going to have this literature, these pamphlets, these whatever. So when they have those high, you know, meetings, they've got these pamphlets about Zambia, about Zimbabwe, about South Africa, about, you know, and what we have, our natural resources, our amusement parks, whatever it is that we have. But it's very difficult. So I think they really need to kind of figure out a way in how they can encourage collaboration. Number two, I would like for them to discuss unfair practices. Let's just say, not just in tourism, but if we're going to have investors that are going to go to Africa, in my industry, there's a lot of what we call tourism leakage. So we have 90% of lodges, hotels in Zambia that are foreign owned. Why can't we not have one or two hotels? Why am I saying that? This will create employment for our people. This will boost the economy, GDP. And through that multiplier effect, guess what? When we pay people, they're able to buy food, they're able to pay bills, they're able, you know, it circulates. The farmer, you know, they buy food from. I think these are things that we need to really focus on. You know, we can't just be promoting, you know, Antara Hotel. It's not ours. It belongs to the Chinese people. And I'm sorry to say that if that's wrong, that came out wrong. But it belongs to the Chinese Asian people. That's creating money for their people. It's boosting their GDP because they're charging in dollars, but they're paying in local currency. It doesn't make sense, right? So that's one thing that we need to address. We need to address gender equality. We need to address racism. We need to address just many things, like just bad practices that I feel our ministers in charge, labor, they don't do anything. There was this thing that we were outraged when a Chinese couple who owned a restaurant in Zambia said we don't allow foreigners, meaning they don't allow Zambians to come into their restaurant. Unacceptable, unacceptable. And they didn't do anything until us people in the diaspora, we raised havoc. And then it was in the news and so forth. And then, so who's the foreigner here? Really? Like, you're in Zambia, in their country, but you're calling them foreigners. It really does not make any sense. And so HR practices, really, number one, they need to really monitor these abuses, these human rights abuses. And I think those are the things that I would really, really address.
Yeah, Clara, I mean, just you're speaking the passion for your industry, and I think really kind of just paints the picture in terms of what Africa can do to learn best practices, to learn, just upskilling and reskilling and retooling our industries, particularly for hospitality and tourism, to become competitive. And really, it's just, we look forward to people like yourselves coming and sharing some of those skills and the experience that you have gathered from abroad to make our own industries better and more competitive. And unfortunately, that's all the time that we had for our interview this afternoon, Clara. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of that with us here at Afrospace. And Afrospace, again, is a weekly show that we come to profile what's happening on the continent and what's happening with our diaspora who are spread across the world. Over to you, Tunji.
Yes, look, Clara, thank you for coming to Afrospace to share with us your vast experience in hospitality, food and beverage. It's not an industry that is easy, looks easy. People are enjoying wine and food and bed and breakfast, but it's one of the toughest businesses because you're dealing with human beings all the time, and people have different needs and they can be difficult. So bravo to you for hanging in there.
And I forgot to show you my pineapple. That's the symbol for hospitality. So yes.
Yeah.
There you are. So pineapples and apples and more. So we are proud of what you're doing there in Canada. So keep flying the flag. But as we normally do in Afrospace, we always say our goodbyes in our African languages. So I'm going to be saying Odabo, Kachifo, Segobe, which are three major Nigerian languages. And over to you, Nyasha.
Okay, and I'll say my farewell in Shona, which is a Zimbabwean, one of the Zimbabwean languages, and we say Sarai Shakanaka, and that just means stay well. Clara, if you've got one that you want to leave with us.
Yeah, I will. I forgot to call my colleagues, but Shalanimpomkwai. Yes, Shalanimpomkwai. Yeah, it means stay well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And what language is that? What language is that?
It's in Bemba. Yeah, I was gonna find the Nyanja one, but geez, it's been so many years. But this one, yes, Shalanimpomkwai.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Nyabonga. Tinotenda. Thank you.
Yeah, Natenda.
Natenda. Yes.
Kachifo. You're welcome.